Here, Dwayne Sarden, aka Dee Wiz, very
Hey!
good friend of mine from a very long time ago.
Yes, yes, yeah!
And this man's been very busy. He recently was on the road with Jon B, and hopefully will be again.
Right.
He was with him in the capacity of DJ and producer, and is now looking to be his full-time drummer.
Right, we'll see how that goes.
Okay, sounds good to me. Good luck to you.
We'll see. So I'm here to take some pointers from you. Yeah, listen, nowadays, I pretty much do the same thing that I was taught to do. Take notes. I write my own charts. I have no problem going inside somewhere with my own cheat sheets. That's how I like to see musicians come to, my band, practices and etc. Because, that shows that you've been studying, you pretty much know the stuff, and if you don't know the stuff, it's right there in front of your face. I'm a big advocate of, taking notes,
Preparedness.
writing charts, etc. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Sounds good.
Love gun. Let's get back into that.
Yeah. Okay. We have a lot we want to talk about today, including this is a little bit tangential. However, he also had some dealings with someone whose music is near and dear to my heart, Prince. And before the microphones went on, we were talking about that.
Talk.
Yeah, we just he came in here with the news that the toxicology report came back and said that there were opiates in his system, and apparently it was in fact an overdose.
Yep.
And tangentially, being as we are both also Kiss fans, the subject of Gene Simmons came up because he did an article recently where,
He gave his opinion.
Gene Simmons, he gave his opinion, and he's never really known for tact, or maybe pulling punches, however you may.
When it comes to, like I said to you a second ago, when it comes to being in a community of music, musicians, etc., Gene Simmons has walked the walk. You can agree with him or not agree with him.
Sure.
He's done things inside the community of music that have been groundbreaking. His group has been some of the first to do certain things at some, in some instances in rock and roll. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Finally. I have a different opinion with him in a lot of areas, but his opinion does, from my point of view, it comes from an experience point of view.
Sure. Well, I don't think anybody really needs to validate him because he comes with his own pedigree. That being said, firstly, I'd love to know even why anyone posed a question to him. They don't run in the same circles. What difference does that make, really?
Right.
And why would he even?
Maybe they
pose
do.
the
Maybe he's a
question?
big Prince fan.
Maybe.
I know he's a big Rick James fan.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's clear also. One thing that he did write in the article was that he felt that between Prince and Michael Jackson, Prince was the superior performer.
right.
Which I would tend to agree with because, look, Michael Jackson, tremendous performer, but most of what Prince performed was his own material. The greater majority of
Right.
which was his.
So that led us to the different variety of drummers. that
Right.
been
Yes.
inside,
Yes.
Kiss.
Of course. Yes. So as of course, he asked me who my favorite, who was the best drummer of
Let's get
Kiss.
straight into it, man.
Right. And I said my favorite was Peter Criss because, well, there's nothing like the first, you know.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, you feel Peter Criss because
Between Eric Singer, Eric Carr, and Peter Criss.
yeah,
Peter Criss is not my favorite drummer, or I don't think he has the most skill.
I
But
concur.
on record, he has done some of the cooler things. His shuffle on records like Love Gun, Detroit Rock City, the other two drummers haven't on record nor live. I haven't seen those guys duplicated. Now, he did an average shuffle. This is an average shuffle that you can hear on any Motown record or any funk
Sure.
record of the 70s or 60s, etc. It's a shuffle.
Right.
But rock music, straight 4/4 rock and roll music does not call for that.
right.
A lot of guys, especially drummers, and I'm critical of them,
Mm-hmm.
that play in rock and roll music, heavy metal, hard rock music. They don't study anything else but that, and it limits their ability to adapt and put other influences inside rock and roll or hard rock music. I don't pull punches. Also, I, like yourself, was a huge Neil Peart fan in the 80s, etc. All of us were. A majority of us, older drummers, 40 and plus, were. When we all went and saw him play at the Ritz for the Buddy Rich Memorial with a bunch of other drummers that, had different variety of styles inside their playing, he was outclassed, period. By almost every single drummer there.
Well, he was not in his element.
Those guys play for Steve Smith. He's a hard rock drummer. He sat there and he battled at that time with the top world-class bebop drummer, Marvin Smitty Smith, at the time. And Steve Smith was a hard rock drummer.
Well, the reason why, too, is because he was labeled as a hard rock drummer. He left Journey primarily
to do that.
to do other things, to start Vital Information and
Right.
to do that sort of thing because his heart was in a different place.
And that's the point I'm saying. The versatility that he
Sure.
that he brought to Journey, to the style of playing that he brought to
And
the
that
music.
he's doing again now.
Right, and I don't hear that with the other guys, with the
Right.
Eric Singers, with the Eric Carr. It's
I
a
agree with you.
straight robotic 4/4, and anything outside of of a swing, anything inside of a swing, they have a difficult time doing. They can't catch it, so they compromise it by doing other things to kind of make it sound or feel like it, but it's not a swing.
You know what?
It's not a shuffle. It's not
I
a swing.
agree with you. I agree with you, and I agree with the sound. But I think my opinion is that there might be another little caveat to why that all is. I think a lot of it has to do with, listen, one of the things that sort of detracted my attention away from Kiss and into other groups like the Police and Rush and ones where there was a little bit more musicality. Well, firstly, I just sort of stumbled over the whole thing, the musicality part of it. Kiss, for what it is fantastic because they're at their best when they keep it simple. One of the reasons why is because of their limited resources, limited abilities, perhaps, And I think maybe with guys like Eric Singer, who, if you've ever heard him play other things, clearly he's out of his element in being in Kiss. And one of the reasons why I think his stuff sounds a little stiff is because, firstly, he's simplifying everything that he does to be in the band.
But it's funny. It looks like he's trying to make them complex and cooler. If you look at the way
Because
he plays
he's
like
trying to
Detroit
make
Rock
it-
City, he
right.
does this thing where he when Peter Criss is doing a double hit on a hi-hat, just that, this guy's, he's taking the hi-hat, which is a simple hit, and he's translated and transfers it to a crash cymbal, and then he chokes it in the middle of a beat, and it comes like every 4 bars, every 4 measures, which is like, huh? Dude, it's a shuffle.
Right.
Don't try to mask. You can't play a shuffle by doing that.
Right.
You know, don't mask it. Like, go
Well,
study some Motown or some funk.
Right. I think one of the reasons why he might be doing that is because even though he may be the more technically proficient player.
Yeah.
There's bigger shoes than his to fill, because he's always going to be second banana to Peter Criss. You know? Hang on 1 second, I'll edit this out. This is the Little Misses. Hi. Okay, so you ready to go home? Fine. All right, well, don't worry about that. Okay? Why don't you just come home? Okay, it's fine. Alrighty, I'm currently podcasting, so.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay. Love you, bye. Okay. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think also, ability aside, I think Peter Criss really got it more. Maybe it's because he was there when they were being written. He got the essence of it.
See, now I'm pissed at Peter Criss because he was good for only a short period of time.
Well, he had a few substance problems, as did Ace Frehley.
Right.
You know, and that can pretty much derail anyone, which kind of bring us full circle back to one of my favorite performers of all time, no longer being on the planet.
Right.
You know, I don't mind telling you, I've had more than one moment where I've cried about the fact that this guy's no longer here.
Right.
More so than I have for members of my family dying.
Right.
What does that say about the impact that he's had musically?
Right.
You know? And of course, there's people on Facebook who'll say, oh, well, you know, nobody's crying when soldiers die, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You know what? Stop it.
Right.
Don't make a political thing out of the fact that this guy is gone.
Right.
You know? It's I think it diminishes his importance.
Yeah, I've seen Prince a variety of times, a handful of times. I've been around him. I've done some projects with him. You know, I've DJ'd for him here and there.
Well, you can't say that and just you get into some details here.
Ah!
I want to hear about
And by the way, you know, back to drums. We could talk Sheila E. all day long, so.
Oh, yeah.
You know, since it's a drum podcast. Yeah, like,
Right.
Sheila E. is a beast, and that's probably my favorite all-around drummer right now.
Yeah.
All around. Because, back to, like I said a few minutes ago, because of her versatility. She's probably my favorite all-around drummer. Doesn't mean she's the top at every single style or whatever, or she could chop, you know, like, no. It means in a majority of styles, Sheila E. can cut it and do it
Right.
authentically and, you know, make you feel what she's doing, she means.
That right there, what you just said, is the most important thing. The fact that we can talk proficiency, we can talk technique, we can talk going on YouTube and seeing some dude do something that doesn't even look like humans are involved in it. But when it comes right down to it, other than a 2-minute YouTube clip, is it entertaining?
Right. See, I was watching something with a friend, and he had showed me a drummer that plays for someone very popular, and they were playing some jazz fusion, Afrocentric style of, you know, whatever. And I liked it. I was like, he's a very famous, you know, performer. And, you know, the drummer, he said, yo, he's amazing, da-da-da-da. And I watched him, and I said, hey, he's very good. Technically, he was amazing and did everything that needed to be done for the music. and it was like I said, it had an Afro fusion Cuban thing going on to it.
Yeah.
And then I took him to an example of Sheila E. playing that style of like Afro Cuban, drum set playing. And I said, "Can you hear the difference?" He said it immediately. He said, "Yes, I can hear the difference." Immediately. He said, "I could close my eyes and hear." Now, they were both playing the same style of music.
Right.
But what she was doing, it was so authentic. Now, the other guy, he had the technical, applications, but the feel of it, he didn't have those backwards rolls. He didn't have all those technical things that goes inside Latin music.
Because he didn't believe in it the same way. I.e., it's not a part of him. It's something he does, but it's not a part of him. That's part of Sheila E. That's part of her upbringing. That's part of who she is.
Right.
So it's nice to be a tourist.
Now, going to dealing with the Peter Criss conversation.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, one of the reasons why he was able to do a lot of that groove oriented, not just straight 1, 2, 3, 4 rock and roll rock beat, he was able to add some of this shuffle type of groove, funk playing to it, because he grew up in an era where some of that music was dominant at that time.
Right.
And he probably grew up playing and practicing to those records of those groups, the Ohio Players, etc., and these bands, early at that time,
Absolutely.
James Brown records, etc.
Sure. Right.
And it's evident in his playing. It's evident in the way he grooves, his shuffle. It's not a rock and roll, straight 2 and 4. It's not that.
No, it's funkier than that.
It is. And it's back to the thing like we're talking about Sheila E. About, hey, she grew up playing these things,
Right.
etc. And for me, for drumming in general, you can hear someone that is really, really, really they're really about whatever style that they're playing.
Right.
You can tell a bebop player.
Right. As opposed to someone who learned to play bebop.
Right.
Right.
Hey, listen, this is a drum podcast, so I'll even give my opinion. I'll even throw some names out there.
Yeah.
When I watch, I love Omar Hakim as a funk player.
Right.
But when I listen to him play jazz, swing specifically, bebop, I'm not a big fan. He adds funk applications to jazz playing. Now,
Right.
what I just said, it may sound so like petty and like, yo, this guy's just too, anal. But no.
Well, some
If you
people
listen-
like red wine. Some people like white wine. Some people like Zinfandel. There are people who really love white wine that will never touch a Zin. Same thing with people with red wine. But he's essentially a Zinfandel. He likes to put those things together. Apparently you like your jazz a little purer than that.
Whatever it is. It could be hip hop, it could be jazz, it could be, classical music, it could be country, whatever it is. Yes, I want some authenticity of whatever I'm getting. Food, cuisine, whatever it is. Yes, I want it in its truest form. Yeah. Even if it's a hybrid, I can appreciate hybrid coming from, the origins on both sides,
Right.
and making a hybrid. Even if it's a hybrid, yeah, I can appreciate that as well.
Okay.
Absolutely. But the genuineness of it is what really captures me, And I think it captures most people too,
Okay.
of whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
And being I'm a drummer, especially in drumming, you can feel it.
Oh, sure. Well, more importantly, even is that you can hear it. Ultimately, everything comes down to the end user, who's the person with the ears, who is either enjoying or not enjoying what it is that you're doing.
Right.
So, tell me a bit about what you've done thus far with Jon B and what you plan on doing.
Well, thus far, I've been doing show dates with him as far as like when they can't afford to bring the entire band. As a DJ, I'll go in, fill in. I'll be the one man band.
Sure.
I'll go in there and play the tracks, etc. I'll hype up the crowd with him on the mic, and him and I will just tag team, go back and forth.
Right.
You know, that's the capacity that I've done thus far.
Any water?
Yeah, that's the capacity I've done thus far. You know, and it's been fun.
Okay.
You know, Jon, he's a professional. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go get you some water. Keep
All right.
talking.
Okay. You're gonna be editing a lot of this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, in that case, I'll wait. You're gonna edit this anyway, so
Yeah.
come back.
Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know.
You have to.
It's 30 seconds. What are you gonna do?
You have to. Thank you. We don't want people. They'll totally won't even. Oh, let me turn away.
Well, you didn't just rip one while I was gone, right?
No.
Okay, then.
Take 3.
So it looked like, were you guys on a boat at some point?
Yeah. I do the Tom Joyner cruise every year, and I'm on there as a DJ. Yeah, and Jon came and did the show with us as well. We had a great time. We had a blast.
Is he doing, you know, some people don't know, Jon B was huge in the early 90s. Not quite as popular now, but that goes to pretty much anybody that's really huge at some point. You never reach that same pinnacle again, but that doesn't mean that you're less relevant. It doesn't mean that anything that you're doing is not as good. It just means that the American public's very fickle, and our attention spans have been diminished even more recently through technology and things. Now, you can't get a lot of people to listen to an entire song at this point unless the song's under 3 minutes long. But a lot of the stuff you're doing with him, is this like his, say, classic stuff, or,
Yes.
or is he doing some new stuff?
That as well, both.
Good.
Yeah, Jon has
Good.
a new album coming out and he's working on right now.
Okay.
From my understanding, it's called Mr. Goodnight. And yeah, he does new
He's in the
material
writing
as well.
process yet?
Yes, he has
Okay.
a lot of songs recorded. A
Okay,
lot.
so then
Finished, recorded.
in the case that you become a part of the band, then obviously you're going to be part of the recording process as well. Or does he just use studio musicians for that?
Both.
Okay.
Both,
Okay.
yeah. I'm recording some stuff with him right now as well. I'm in the studio with Jon B
Good.
as well. We
Okay.
have some original music that him and I are working on right now as well.
You as producer and engineer, you mean? Okay.
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Producer, engineer, songwriter, yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, musician. Yeah, everything.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, man, shoot.
See, I'm glad to see you're doing so well. I'm glad to see that there's so many pies you got fingers in.
You know, since the days of, you had a band leader like Buddy Rich, and this guy, he would book the tours, he would, audition the band, pick the songs, he did everything on his own. He was the band leader as well. Taking that style of artistry
Right.
for a drummer, I think if you take that style, you won't go wrong because you don't limit yourself to just playing drums in somebody's band. You see how you can be a band leader, you could be the center, you could branch off and do other projects, etc. And that's where I think drummers that have the ability to do that, they should explore. We should explore these different things of doing, not just playing trap set or percussion or whatever. If you have any type of desires to do whatever, go inside it. But just don't do a typical drum album. When you find your favorite drummer and he does his solo drum album, it's usually a drum album for drummers.
Well, yeah, it's a very niche audience. It's if you were talking about other kind of publications, it's not a Stephen King novel. It's
Right. Yeah, but I think drummers should get involved with a variety of things musically. You know.
I do too. That and the fact that drumming in and of itself it's always undergoing an evolution. But I think it's progressed and accelerated through the web because there's so many drummers that are. Did you have any idea there was this many monsters out there?
Right.
And there's all you have to do, go on Drummer World and just, play something and then just let it go to the next one. You'll see this one. That's just got to be the most amazing drummer I've ever seen. And then as soon as that video is done,
the next
one comes up, and you know what you say? That's just got to be the most amazing drummer I've ever seen. And it'll be two completely different, like they're playing a completely different instrument almost.
Isn't it amazing how technology has done this when we were young? You know, in the late 70s, early 80s, we didn't have this type of access to look, see, find other drummers around the world, what they're doing, what's cool, what's new, the new tricks, the new styles, the latest, etc. We didn't have that.
I think it's a good thing, and I think there's elements of it that is a bad thing as well. I think it's very easy to go into sensory overload. There's not just a lot of information available.
Right.
All of the information is available. All now, all at one time.
That's very true.
But it can leave one a little overwhelmed. It can leave you with a lot of information and no guidance as to where to go.
Right.
Now that I have I know that all of these skills exist, which one should I concentrate on?
I'll be honest with you, Andy, that happened to me about 2 years ago, just in general.
Right.
It wasn't even musically related, you know. Like you said, we are definitely in the information age.
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely had an experience where it was information overload.
Right.
Yeah.
Explain that. What happened?
I was just doing a lot of web surfing, like most people do. One curiosity led to the next, to the next curiosity of something that you didn't even know existed, of something that you didn't know was connected to this, etc. And then you're just in a place 5 and 6 hours, into it, that you didn't realize that you're at. And then whoa, so you take a break, and then you're back at it again next day, etc. So information over, and that can happen with musicians as well. I do understand.
And I'm coming from the position of not only a drummer but also a teacher of drums. And when I tell you, it's sometimes hard to wrangle a student because this generation coming up, if you think that we can get stuck in a web time warp just because, and by that I mean you get on the web with the idea in mind you're doing one thing, and then not only do you reach tangent after tangent, but then you look outside and the sun's not up anymore and you're not even aware of how much time went by. That's pretty normal for a 10-year-old of today, which is about maybe somewhere between 10 and 12 when most kids, if they really catch the bug, that's where they start getting serious.
When you say the bug, you're talking about
musician
bug.
Where they really, there are exceptions to the rule, of course, but if your first experience with music would be through your public school system, they don't even start you playing until you're 9 years old.
When did you catch the bug?
I got to tell you a story. Okay, I always liked to play, and I started playing when I was 9. Because snare drum first. I started exactly as you are intended to start through the public school system.
Right.
Never played any.
Practice
Listened
pad,
to
et
music
cetera.
before then. Always loved music. But there was just something about that drum. And I started at 9.
That bug, though, that, like you said, when they get the bug, you know, I don't know what mine was. I just know I've always been playing drums set, and have been addicted.
I can tell you when it started, and I can tell you how and why it started. I played
3
like I
sentences
said-
or less.
Impossible. This is a 2-minute story. When you went to school in Westbury, which we're both from, Westbury, New York public school system. When we were going through it, it was not called a middle school; it was called the junior high. And when you went to junior high was 7th grade through 9th grade. I'm very well aware of the fact 9th grade is actually a first year of high school, but we were housed in the junior high building. That has since changed. Now I think they go in there. Do you know? Was
9th
it
grade
fifth grade to 8th? Is that what it is now? Something like that. Well, whatever it is, it doesn't. It's not germane.
30
to
seconds
the
into your
story.
2-minute
Right.
thing right now, Andy. You have 90 seconds,
Yeah.
bro.
Okay.
You have 90 seconds left.
All right. Junior high is the first. 7th grade was the first year in which you go from class to class, as opposed to being in the same classroom for your 6 straight hours, normally as you would be in elementary school. And at the end of that year, I was asked, as were a bunch of other people who were in regular band, to come up with a small band because there was going to be an assembly, where they were going to congratulate everyone for their first year, job well done, and they wanted a little band so that everybody could see, hey, this is how everybody's progressed throughout the year. As normally occurs when you have an after-school activity like this was considered, you'd have to have some sort of chaperone. In this case, it was my math teacher, Mr. Basilico, who was also a drummer. I had a beginner kit, and a beginner kit back then was way more of a beginner kit than it is today. Your hardware back then was very flimsy. And the flimsiest part of my setup was my bass drum pedal, which would fall apart on a pretty regular basis, and did so several times during the rehearsals with this band. Mr. Basilico had a Ludwig Speed King pedal, and when my pedal fell apart at the 11th hour, he puts a hand on my shoulder, and I thought that he was going to, in fact, loan me said pedal. That is not what occurred. He said, Andy, maybe I should play. He crushed me. I didn't even know how to process that, other than the fact that I knew I was going to have to sit there at the assembly and watch this man play my part. Now, we all were going to get a solo, too. At that early age, did I have the skills to play a really riveting solo? Probably not. But neither did anyone else in that band. However, he went on and on and on with this solo, and he basically showed off for the other faculty, is what he did. He'd like to probably say it's something else, but that's not, in fact, what happened. He showed off, But one thing is, I'm always up for a challenge, even at that early age. So he made me mad. That summer, I practiced for a minimum of 5 hours a day.
So what age were you when you got big?
I was 12. Right?
12, okay.
Right. And I continued to practice all summer to the point where they had to pull me out of the basement.
Right.
And all during the school year thereafter, practiced 5 hours on the weekends, as much as I could get away with during the week. And at the end of that year, I issued him a challenge. I challenged him to a drum battle. And he never took me up on it. And he called my mother to try to get me in trouble. And I says, do you know what your son did? He says, yes. Well, you stole his gig. He's allowed to throw down the gauntlet. You know, says, you cannot take him up on the challenge if you'd like. You know, says, so you condone this? Says, condone it. I typed the letter for him.
Right.
Goodbye. Click. He never did take me up on the challenge. Never did. And I'd never seen him again. But I'd like to. And the reason why is because I'd like to thank him. Because it was not his intention to light the fire under me. It was his intention to act the fool.
Cool.
But let's just say I'm a pretty big guy, right? The only other thing that I've been doing, drums is the thing I've been doing longest in my life. Second longest is weight training, you know? So I'm bigger than the average drummer, you know? But maybe after that summer, if I played, maybe I put down the sticks, I pick up a football, and I never play again.
Right.
You know, who knows? You know, you never know. And until I spent that kind of a time frame, really delving, really digging in, who knows? You know, but that summer was when I really found out how much I really love to do this and how I cannot picture my life without this.
Cool. 12 years old, you got bit. I don't know
old.
when I got bit. Been playing drums pretty much all my life. I'd like to see the arts in school, you know, a little stronger.
Right.
The days of 70s and 80s is kind of like, you know, diminishing. I think one of the reasons is because we're in the age now where drum machines, you know, things like Logic, Pro Tools, computers have taken over. However, computers are not an instrument.
No.
That's just funny. You know, I have a studio, so I
Yes.
tell people when they come over, sometimes other producers, beat makers, I call them, that will come over. They don't play an instrument, and they'll, you know, they could bang out something, a sequence beat on a drum machine.
Yes.
And you know, I see how nowadays that has taken over. So that is one of the downfalls to why, you know, school systems, the arts inside schools have kind of like, you know, taken a big hit. You know, instruments are no longer being put in our hands, you know, when we were like they were when we were young. I do recall at the time when I was working at Sam Ash, very early 90s, a co-worker did tell me, he said, hey D, put the sticks down for a while, learn some of this cool stuff, this MIDI stuff. You know, if you decide you don't like it, pick up the sticks later on, and you know, you pick up where you came from, where we left off. You know, that was the best advice that was given to me. You know, I'm a natural born drummer, so that's never going to leave my blood.
Right.
But learning the new stuff when it first started being developed in the early 90s, MIDI and SMPTE and all that stuff, it definitely changed my life, career, and the potential of me being in the music business.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't be able to do what I do if I was just a drummer. You know, being a drummer is good, great, cool, but to really, 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 in my opinion, make a difference in the community of music specifically, having a variety of hats really helps out.
Sure.
You know?
Right.
Having your own recording studio or being able to do a variety of things outside of playing drum set.
Well,
for
it's
an artist.
certainly monetarily to be able to survive. It's best to have more than just a good set of chops. Look, I went by way of educating. You know, so
Right.
I opened my school. You know, in a perfect world, I'd be able to pick and choose my students.
Right.
You know, and only teach the ones that had a real desire to really learn this as craft, as an art form, not as a, you know, second banana to taekwondo lessons and soccer practice.
Right.
You know, but it's not a perfect world. I don't regret teaching. It's one of my favorite things is teaching, because you get to see those aha moments. You get to see when somebody gets it, and all of a sudden they have a skill, and then once they have it, it's theirs forever.
Right.
You know, and it is a
That
very,
is true.
very, very important part of my big picture, what it is that I do. I would like at this point to be playing more, but you know, if you don't mind my saying, it took countless man hours to put this room together, and so as a result, I had to make some choices. You know, I was in two bands at the time, and I had to quit both of them. You know, because there's only 24 hours in a day.
Right.
You know, and but now this is, and as a matter of fact, I did have my student body sort of dwindle down a little bit as well, because you got to realize if you're teaching, excuse me, you will primarily have kids as your main source of, you know, of income, and kids grow up, kids go to college, and so it's cyclical. You lose a percentage every year to college. Sometimes you'll get them back in the summer, sometimes you don't. So you have to replenish, you know. But again, 24 hours in a day, didn't replenish as much, you know. So it's down by a little bit, not anything crazy, but it's smaller than it was, and so now I'm recruiting new people to come, you know. But you know, that's my thing. This is really, this podcast really is about my guests, not about me. Anybody can go on the web and find out about me. Hang
We have to do a lot of editing on this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of editing. A lot.
Hi. No, it's all right. I have to edit anyway. Okay. All right. All right. So then I'll talk to you in a little bit. Did you get yourself something? Okay. Good. All right. All right. I love you. Bye bye.
Yeah, we've been talking about an hour anyway. We've been chopping it up for about an hour anyway, so.
Right. Well, how much time we got? Well, we got 42 minutes.
That's how much we be talking?
Yeah, 42 minutes. Here's something. Being as you're my friend, I don't mind asking these kinds of questions, because some of the other guys I've had in here, I haven't known as intimately or for as long, or you know, in the capacity of going to school with. I just got off the phone just a second ago with my wife of 22 years. It's never really easy as a musician to maintain a relationship. You know?
Right.
Have you found that to be the case, or is...
I'll be honest with you, I'm blessed that I haven't found that to be the case. I've, in my adult world, I guess I've dated women, amazing women that have really understood.
Okay.
In my opinion, you find someone that pretty much is in a similar understanding,
Right.
as you.
Right.
You don't have. That doesn't mean doctors have to date doctors, lawyers have to date lawyers, artists have to date artists. No, just a similar understanding.
Sure.
You know.
Actually, I think
That's it.
quite the opposite. You can definitely find this in the community of entertainment, in the capacity of being an actor. If an actor marries another actor,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost doomed from the start, because one person's invariably going to have a better career than the other person, and the other person's going to resent them. Sure. You know, if you have someone.
Well, like I said, I didn't say they should do that. I'm saying someone that has an understanding.
Of course, yeah, I understand that. Right. I can tell you, for someone who's been with someone who has been in it for the long haul, it's not always easy, because we have some weird hours. You know, when you tell someone, yeah, do you have this weekend? I want to do a 10 to 2. You know, are you down for a 10 to 2? 10 to 2 means 10 o'clock in the evening till 2 o'clock in the morning. Those are not like human people hours, you know? And
I don't take
look,
those hours at my house.
yeah, there's there's only so many
There's a
times.
studio meant for that.
Yeah, yeah. There's only so many times that your significant other is going to want to watch you play in some little place. You know, the same songs you've been rehearsing with your band for the last 3 years. You know? So they're going to say, you know what, I'll opt out of this one. And then they're at home waiting for you. Because 2 o'clock doesn't mean that's when you're home. That means that's when you're done. Now you pack up. Now you go home. You get out of the city. You go home. And what kind of mood are you in by that point?
Hey, you can't go straight home. You gotta go to the diner first, bro.
Well, that seems to be diners were designed for musicians.
After the gig,
Yeah.
that's why they're 24 hours. You gotta go to the diner.
That's
man.
it. That's it.
Come on,
Right.
before going home, gotta get some French toast or some pancakes and stuff like that.
There you go. There you go. You are also a Juilliard trained musician. Do you have original material?
Yes,
And what have you done with it?
it's out there. I have some house songs that I've done that I've produced, played my stuff on, etc. Any given time, you know, I have one on Karmic Power Records, which is a house label. I did a house record on there called Music Makes You Wanna. In the 90s, I did a jazz hip-hop fused album on RCA Records with Steve Coleman and the Metrics. That's out there. I have a house record that I just finished remixing and producing for Jeff Red called My Love. That's out there. There's a few things. I've remixed a Salt and Pepper record called Big Girls. All of this stuff, every record I've mentioned in the Steve Coleman and the Metrics album is on iTunes, Spotify. You can go anywhere and find any of this material.
Terrific. If you wouldn't mind, just at your leisure, if you could give me a listing of all these things, because in addition to having your podcast episodes there, I would like to put on the site like sort of a little profile on you, so
Okay.
that if people are more interested, you know, and want to know more about you, you know, they have the capacity to do that, including links to, if you have a website of your own,
Okay.
your Facebook, whatever, just to, you know, get you more traffic,
Okay.
you know. So,
That's what I'm in this for, Andy. I'm in this for the long haul, you
Yeah.
know?
right.
Try to plant as many seeds as I possibly can plant, you know, and I have a lot more to do, a lot of work to do.
Well, what kind of assistance do you have in addition to planting seeds on your own? Do you have any management? How do you get gigs?
Word of mouth.
Word
you
of
know,
mouth.
when you get inside, everyone has heard it. It's a circle.
Right.
You know, you get inside the circle, you know the same guys, the same musicians, the same promoters, you know, and there's always work. There's always something to be done.
Right.
You know, it really is getting your foot inside that circle.
And then
Yeah, I've
picking up
always
the
heard this
phone
when I
when it
was young.
rings.
Yeah, you have to
Right.
get, yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, that's one of the things that I always stress in this podcast is that I like to invite guests in that have had different experiences than my own, and being as my experiences have almost always been being in a band. You know, my experience is greatly different than someone who's more of a lone wolf as yourself.
Right.
You know, but being as I am a man of a certain age, I'm maybe looking to change that up a little bit and
Right.
maybe do some session work or something in that capacity,
Go
because
for it.
I don't just want to be in a band anymore, because the landscape's different now. You know, and I don't know that I have I definitely have the desire to play. I have the urgency to change not only in the way the things that I'm putting down on the skins, but also the way that I get it out there.
Right.
You know, and I think maybe if I was hired because I am who I am, as opposed to being just a member of a band, who you're sort of put in a box when you're in a band. You know, if someone calls you directly, if someone calls Dwayne,
Mm-hmm.
they want what Dwayne has to offer. They don't
Right.
just necessarily, because you could absolutely positively get that by pushing some buttons, and it's just there,
Right.
right? But they want the life force that is you, and the style that is you. We already discussed, you know, you can have a bunch of people playing essentially the same groove, and there's just something intangible, something that makes it yours, that makes it special. And that's why a person would get a gig over another person with as much talent as there is out there,
Right.
you know? So,
There's something about it being yours that makes it special.
right.
And if every musician ever got that, they would really go, you know, a lot of places that they want to do. You can do anything that you want to do if you really believe in yourself.
Yeah, I agree with
Sounds
you.
corny, you know.
No, I
that,
think
whatever,
now
but
more
it's
than ever,
very
that's
true.
very important. Because as we were saying before, all of this information that's out there, a lot of people would become discouraged, even really, really accomplished players, because even for a guy, I've been playing for 38 years, non-stop for 38 years, and there will be stuff on the web that I'm like, wow, that's just so completely not me.
Right.
I find it very interesting. I really would even like to maybe learn how to do that.
Right.
But you can't forget who you are.
Right.
And if that's going to detract from what it is that you are as an artist, you're wasting your time. You know? And I think that's one of the most important things, is that we have a finite amount of time. And you have some sifting to do,
Yes.
you know, to figure out what it is that is worth your time and what isn't. And if anything, I think we can both agree music is never a waste of time.
No. No.
So.
I could wake up in the morning and have a certain musical taste, and an hour or two after that is totally changed. I have
Right.
another, you know, flavor.
I think as drummers too. I think we more than other instruments, more than other musicians, and I want to make sure that word musician gets in there, because so many times we're not given that respect.
You're not a musician, you're a drummer.
Right. That whole thing, you know. But if you look at my CD collection, yeah, I'm an old man. I got a CD collection.
Uh-huh.
It's so varied, because drummers are always looking for something new and cool to do.
Right.
You know, and I think we probably appreciate music more than other musicians do, because we see the value in the variety more than other musicians do. Which is why maybe Omar puts so much funk in his jazz.
Let me throw some funk in this jazz, mix it up. It's too jazzy for me.
Who are your it's hard to put people in a box. So as opposed to saying who's your favorite drummer, what is it you're listening to the most right now?
Now, groove. I like Aaron Spears. That's my guy. I like him a lot right now.
Yeah.
A lot. A lot. His groove is incredible. Right now, that's all I want to hear is groove.
Well, you know what? It's really, really clear when he's playing that he's having a blast. And it's more evident when you see a video, but you can still hear it even if you're not looking at his face.
Yeah.
That you know, it's joy. And without that, what are we doing?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I watched something online the other day, and somebody had posted something on Facebook, and it was a Buddy Rich like clip, solo, whatever, and they wrote something like, "And he's still kicking our asses today."
Right? Yeah. Well, you know what? That's the whole thing. I mean, there's a lot of videos out there where you'll have a guy and he's showing you the Buddy Rich technique and everything else. And look, there are drummers now who are faster than Buddy Rich is. It's just gonna happen.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
What he did, Buddy was Buddy. You don't have to say he's the best drummer in the world, although a lot of people will say that. And but why can't something just be? Why? It's.
I think Buddy Rich did for drumming what nobody else has ever done, ever.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
Oh yeah.
In entertainment, not just the drum world, in entertainment as well. Buddy Rich was a showman. Buddy Rich was practically a comedian. Buddy Rich was like, it's on another level. That's why one of the reasons why people really deify him. It's his solos were like something not just to listen to, but also something to watch.
Right.
Not because he was spinning his sticks and doing all this heavy metal stick throwing and stuff like that, because his technique, it was so precise. It was like, wow, watching that, it's like I'm watching how the application should be done.
Right.
His posture, so it's watching. I like watching Steve Smith. Steve Smith, his technique is incredible. I love watching him.
Right.
He plays the way when I first remember being in drum lessons. He plays the way I remember being taught. Wrist, posture, these kind of things.
Oh yeah, it's
like,
clear he didn't forget any of the lessons.
They're
in there. He uses them on a daily basis.
His rudiments, like, yeah, it reminds, like, wow, watching this guy, he really took all of this stuff seriously. All of it.
Yeah, I agree. There was once, as you know, I taught before I had my own practice. I taught for the Long Island Drum Center for a number of years, and I don't know if I told this story on this with you or not, but whenever there's downtime, you're privy to the conversations of other drummers. The Drum Center has been a mecca of drummers on this coast for 40 years. And you'll get conversations by drummers who come in there sometimes just to kick the tires, as they say, sometimes to buy things, or sometimes just to soak in the atmosphere, which it has always been there in one capacity or the other. Right now they're going through some pretty tough times. But hopefully they'll rise from the ashes again. We've had this discussion, but the conversation that I heard was two guys arguing about who was the better drummer, Buddy Rich or Steve Gadd, and both of them had fairly valid arguments, but I wasn't privy to the whole thing, because then my next student, who did decide to show up, I then taught this person. By the time I came out of that 30-minute lesson, they were still at it. And then there was another guy who was just basically looking around, not part of the conversation or whatever, and I guess he got like way too close to them, and then they decided to involve him in it. So he stopped the argument pretty decisively by saying, all right, let me ask a question then. Let's say Buddy was really sick and couldn't do a gig, and they called Steve, could Steve do his gig? Well, sure. Well, let's say Steve is sick. Could Buddy do his gig? Well, I guess that depends on what the gig is, right? Because Buddy is a case of he is arguably the best big band player there's ever been or ever will be, because he personified what that player ought to be. But how much, funk fusion 5/8, 7/8 going into 9/8 and 1916 time did he do?
Right.
None, So Steve did,
Right.
So you could tell the difference between whether Steve was swinging the Buddy Rich band or whether Buddy was.
Right.
But to some capacity, he could definitely function. But it's just two different things, which is why it's the
But it's
old
capability as well.
Yeah.
Buddy's capable of playing that stuff if that stuff was around in the 50s, 40s, etc. He's capable
Right.
of playing.
Oh well,
in odd
most
meters.
most accomplished drummers are capable of it. The question remains: what's more important, though? Is it more important to focus on something in particular and become the very, very best at that, a whole jack of all trades, master of none sort of a thing, or is it better to be proficient at multiple
Variety
different,
for me.
Yeah.
As I start out with this podcast, I like a drummer that play a variety of styles.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely.
I guess it's a personality thing. If I found a type of music that I could love, eat, sleep it, I don't need anything else. Something I could just be married to. Well, maybe that's all I would ever do. I get bored easy. So
Right.
I need more.
More expression.
Yeah. Yeah, different ways to get all of that out.
Yes.
But I guess that big band was just in that guy's DNA. That's just what he was.
Yeah.
And when he started playing when he was 2. On
circus.
vaudeville, tap dance and playing a snare drum when he was 2.
Right.
I was a long time Al Miller student, and he was good friends with Buddy Rich. Nothing more intimidating than knowing Buddy Rich is on the other end of a phone call that's happening during your lesson. Nothing lets you feel this big when these two giants, one guy, Al Miller, you could take a Pollock painting and he could play it, just because anything that's ever been written, that guy could read it.
Right.
And this is the two, and most of the arrangements that he played with his own big band were Buddy Rich arrangements. The big difference between Buddy and Mr. Miller was Mr. Miller read, because he was educated in a different way. He wasn't educated on the street like Buddy was. He was educated by educators, so he learned more classically, and so there would always be that thing. Al, when are you going to teach me how to read? Buddy, we've been through this. You're going to come in here, you're going to get frustrated because, your playing is what it is and everybody knows it, Your reading will never match up to your playing, so I'm not going to see you for 6 months, and then you're going to ask me, when are you going to teach me how to read?
Right.
So it never happened, and you know what? It shouldn't have, because that's not who he was. You should always be true to yourself.
I agree.
Provided, of course, you know who you are.
I agree.
So.
Yeah. Buddy is one of my dudes, man. Growing up, man, you're not gonna get me to. That's my guy.
Oh, and he should be. There's like you say, there's probably never going to be anyone who will have contributed to the cause like him,
Right.
you know. But I guess we'll have to see.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not done.
No, we're not done. Anyway, just so we don't talk around in circles, why don't we call it a night and agree to reconvene at a different time and hit this thing again.
Episode 3 coming up next.
All right, this has been Dee's podcast. This will probably be the first edited podcast, as we had a few little snafus there. But hopefully it sounds good, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks a lot, and good night.
Peace.